welcome to the Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walk. My name is Steve Van Eiderstein, and thank you again for joining me for today's reading of James Allen's Daily Meditation. It's been great. The last 2 days have been about truth and what it looks like, how it has to be experienced, and how to tell what you serve. You know, that's a great tips on to actually take a look at yourself. So it's the last 2 days have been really good. Really enjoyed them. And so I'm looking forward to today, and I'm interested to see what it has as a follow-up, if it's going to continue or if we're going to shift gears a little bit. So we're going to find out. This will be fresh to you and fresh to me. So you'll get my genuine response, reactions, observations, and what I relate to about the reading. And we will go from there. So here we go. This is February 19th, 2023, from James Allen's Daily Meditations. That which temptation appeals to and arouses is unconquered desire. Temptation waylays the man of aspiration until he touches the region of the divine consciousness, and beyond that border temptation cannot follow him. It is when a man begins to aspire that he begins to be tempted. Aspiration rouses up all the latent good and evil in order that man may fully reveal himself, for a man cannot overcome himself unless he fully knows himself. It can scarcely be said of the merely animal man that he is tempted, for the very presence of temptation means that there is a striving for a purer state. Animal desire and gratification is the normal condition of the man who has not yet risen into aspiration. He wishes for nothing more, nothing better than his sensual enjoyments, and is, for the present, satisfied. Such a man cannot be tempted to fall, for he has not yet risen. Aspiration can carry a man to heaven. Whew! There is a lot to unpack on that one. I'm excited about this one. This one's great. Here we go. Wow. I'm just going to get right into it. The opening line, that which temptation appeals to and arouses is unconquered desire. I mean, just hearing that objectively, obviously that's true, right? If we do not have, or if we have desires that are not yet conquered, worked through, overcame, then temptation will always spring. So anytime you have temptation in your life, look at the desire behind it, right? Because we have to actually take a look at why we want these things so badly. What is the driving force behind these temptations that we have, man? Like, this is great to actually, that one line, there's so much right there, because it really is saying there's work to be done if you still have temptation. There's a level to rise to still. All right, here we go. Temptation waylays the man of aspiration until he touches the region of the divine consciousness, and beyond that border, temptation cannot follow him. Until you do the work and you do the meditation, the inventories, the contemplation, the prayer, temptation will be there. And until you tear it apart, until you understand the motivations that are underlying the desire that temptation is playing to, it will always be there. And when you get down to those motivations, whether it's a fear, whether it's an insecurity, whether it's a understanding, whatever it is, when you get there, you have to be willing to let that go. Turn that over. Free yourself from it. Free yourself from the bondage of whatever those driving factors are that are making you susceptible to these painful things you keep running yourself into. I like how it says, temptation waylays the man of aspiration. right? When we want to achieve something greater, when we want to move forward, temptation will be our greatest foe because it allows us to be distracted or feel good or whatever it is. So we have to look at those temptations. It could be food, it could be drugs, it could be relationships, it could be sex, it could be reading, it could be a whole lot of things. A lot of things we use to distract ourselves. That's the reality of this. So we have to be honest about these things when we're doing these works. But once we do it, it says here, beyond that border, temptation cannot follow him. Until he touches the region of divine consciousness, and beyond that border, temptation cannot follow him. When we find the truth, right? We've been talking about truth. When we find the truth of the situation, we can, I would consider that touching the region of divine consciousness. Temptation cannot follow us. It is when a man begins to aspire that he begins to be tempted. Because when we're comfortable, it's not really temptations. When we want to do better, when we want to do differently, temptation shows up, right? Because we're changing our behavior. It's not temptation if it's just normal behavior for you, right? It's when we want to change and aspire to things that we have to actually look at this stuff that we are changing. And that's when the temptations come in. Why are we tempted? We have to look at these things. We have to look at our motivation. What's the desire? Why do we desire it so much? What is the insecurity, the fear, that lack that's underneath it? This is a lot about doing this work right now. And it's so important. And when you feel temptation, it shows you work needs to be done. When you feel temptation, there's work that needs to be done. Temptation feeds desire that you have. Why do you have that desire? Aspiration rouses up all the latent good and evil in order that the man may be fully revealed to himself. For a man cannot overcome himself unless he fully knows himself. I'm going to read that one again. That was beautiful. Aspiration rouses up all the latent good and evil in order that the man may be fully revealed to himself. For a man cannot overcome himself unless he fully knows himself. Sorry, I almost skipped a line there. And that is truth, right? Everyone's talking about these days, wanting to get to know who I am, understand me, this, that, the other thing. Well, to be fair, we know ourselves through a lot of our defects. Understanding why we do the things we do in a negative way lets us find who we actually are. And that's been my experience. A lot of people define themselves by their toxic behaviors or painful behaviors or whatever. Character defects, some call them. Shortcomings, some call them. But when we want to change those things, the good and the bad come to the surface, right? Because when we want to stop a behavior, we have to take a look at both sides of these things. I love how it talks about the latent good and evil in order that the man may be fully revealed to himself. Like, so you get a full picture of why or who you are and why you're doing the things you're doing when you want to change these behaviors. Changing and aspiring to a higher state of consciousness, you might call it, plane of existence, some might call it, just level of integrity, you can keep it at simply. Level of goodness even. When you want to change, you have to look at all of it. And you get to really know you. A lot of us run on autopilot in a lot of ways. And when we want to change the autopilot, we see our driving factors. We see where we show up, our selfishness and our self-centeredness. That's huge. It can scarcely be said of the merely animal man that he is tempted. For the very presence of temptation means there is a striving for a purer state. This makes 100% sense to me. It's one of those revealing lines that we know to be true, But until stated, you don't realize it, right? So, like I was saying earlier, it can scarcely be said of the merely animal man that he is tempted. We're not tempted when we're just operating on status quo, right? We're not tempted when we're continuing to do the same old things. For the very presence of temptation means that there is a striving for a purer state. When you want to become more spiritually pure, like I said, whatever you want to call it, you want to stop the behavior. That's where temptation shows up. When that vacuum of where a behavior used to be occurs, there's suddenly temptation to fill it. And that is because we're trying to grow spiritually. We are taking the actions necessary. And James Allen has a quote. It says, self-control is strength. Right thought is mastery. Calmness is power, right? And I believe that's the progression as well of doing the work. So self-control, you have to stop doing the thing first. And then you can change the thought. And then the peace of soul and mind come through. And then self-control is not even needed because the action's not even considered. It's pretty amazing. So this is talking about that first portion of doing the work. It's self-control, to stop the action, whatever it is. It could be drugs, alcohol, relationship hopping. It could be food. It could be distraction. It could be social media. It could be so many things. But the behavior, when you try to stop it, it gives you the opportunity to look at the thinking behind it. But you have to stop it first. Animal desire and gratification is the normal condition of the man who has not yet risen into aspiration. And I believe that. And the thing is, it's not our job. It's not my job to judge those that stay there. There are people that are content with being right there. And who am I to say they're wrong? I guess. I've found a different way to live, but if they haven't made the jump to aspire to different things, and they're content with that, it's not my job to interfere. Let them be. If there's a calling for a different way of thinking, a different plane of thinking, then they will find it in their own time. And that's the normal condition of a man who has not risen into aspiration. He wishes for nothing more, nothing better than his sensual enjoyments, and is for the present satisfied. There's a man cannot be tempted to fall, for he is not yet risen. If you haven't stepped up and tried to change, then there's nothing you're losing. You're missing out on an opportunity. Maybe I'm sure there's a lot of arguments that can be made for why this is a potentially negative circumstance. But the reality of it is that a man contented and not aspiring to more than where he actually is not somebody that needs to be addressed. As long as he's not harming other people, right? Not infringing on other people's sovereignness, of course. But there's obviously limits to that statement. But he wishes for nothing more, nothing better than his sensual enjoyments, and is for the present satisfied. Such a man cannot be tempted to fall, for he is not yet risen. So, but the reality of this is, there's hope, or there's encouragement in this, because if you are having temptation, that means you're aspiring and you're looking to climb and grow and walk this spiritual life in a new area of your life, or just maybe for the first time. And that's encouraging. That is awesome, right? Because we don't even know how far this growth can take us. And how beautiful an idea is that? Well, maybe we do, because it's the last line it closes with. Aspiration can carry a man to heaven. Because it's been my personal experience, at least, that when I lay in the animalistic nature of a human being, it can cause hell. It can cause so much pain. internally, mentally, spiritually, and even physically. And I found much of heaven after I've started walking this spiritual path and walking this spiritual walk, living this different way of life. I found peace, I found serenity, I found contentment, and I found love. Things I didn't know were available to a guy like me, but it took a lot of aspiring to be different, and it took a lot of pain to get to the point of aspirations. Get to the point of picking my head up and looking up. It took a while. So, great one today, though. Oh, so good. Thank you, everyone, for joining and listening to the podcast today. There's been a lot of great feedback, and today's reading was just fantastic. You know, it's saying if you're being tempted, you're growing, and I love that. So, if you want to, go ahead and give the Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walks Facebook a like or a follow, and you'll get some updates with quotes and the podcast daily sharing, so you can make sure you hit that and go from there. So thank you all for joining me. I look forward to the 20th of February and where this series of meditations is going to take us. So it's been great in the last couple days, that's for sure. So until next time, thanks.